I spent years living under their roof, yet I might as well have been a shadow that no one noticed. A ghost wandering through the corridors of a life that didn't belong to me. It wasn't about space, and it wasn't even about money, not really. It was about power, about control, about the slow, methodical way they chipped away at who I was until I barely recognized myself. Day after day, piece by piece, they stripped me down, not physically, but mentally, emotionally, until there was almost nothing left. I had been trapped in a story I didn't write, forced to play a role I never auditioned for. Before we dive in, subscribe for more powerful stories like this. And drop your lovely city or hometown in the comments. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Now, let's begin. It was a summer evening, the kind of evening where the air clung warm to your skin and the smell of grilled meat curled through the neighborhood. You could hear the faint hum of conversation drifting from nearby yards, the occasional clink of a glass, and the buzz of insects in the cooling dusk. But all of that faded into nothing when I heard my father's voice. Sharp. Unforgiving. Cutting through the air like a blade. "Chris," he barked, his eyes glinting with something between disdain and cruel amusement, "you're either paying rent or you're out. This house isn't a charity." I froze for a moment, gripping my paper plates so tightly that my knuckles turned white. My fingers ached from the pressure, but I didn't loosen my hold. It wasn't just the words, it was the way he said them. Like a challenge. Like he wanted the neighbors to hear. And judging by the way some of them were pretending to ignore us while glancing over, they had. The laughter came next, sharp and deliberate, and not just from him. My stepmother, Lisa, let out that low, satisfied chuckle she always used when she thought she'd scored a point. My half-brother, Dylan, leaned back in his chair, a beer bottle dangling lazily in his hand, smirking like he owned the place. This wasn't a conversation, it was a performance. And I was the intended spectacle. "I've been covering the bills for years," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady even though I could feel my pulse hammering in my neck. "Half my paycheck disappears into this house every month. You're the one living rent-free." Dad's lips curled into that fake, superior grin I'd seen too many times. "Welcome to life, kid. If you don't like it, find another roof." Dylan snorted and raised his bottle toward me like a mock toast. "Good luck finding one." The air between us grew heavy. The smell of smoke from the grill seemed to twist into something darker, resentment, betrayal, and the slow burn of humiliation. I took one deliberate step forward, my shadow stretching toward my father as the flickering flames from the barbecue painted his face in wild, jagged patterns. "Fine," I said quietly, but with steel in my voice. "You want me gone? I'll go. But the second I walk out that door, don't expect me to pay another dime." His laugh was cold, like metal against glass. "And where would you go, Chris? Back to that dump you call an apartment? You've got no savings, no future." What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had been preparing for this moment for months. Saving. Planning. Waiting for the right time to slip the noose they'd tied around my neck. In my pocket, the keys to my own place felt heavy and reassuring. I didn't need to argue. I just needed to act. When the family gathering finally wound down, I made my decision. I wasn't going to stick around to be their scapegoat, their punching bag, or their personal ATM. They wanted me gone. They'd get their wish. The next morning, the air was crisp, the kind that fills your lungs with a sharp, almost stinging freshness. I packed my last box with steady hands, not from lack of fear but from the fire of freedom that burned hotter than any doubt. My new home wasn't much, a small two-story with peeling paint and a porch swing that creaked in the wind, but it was mine. By noon, the deed lay on my kitchen table. My name. My property. My independence. I sent one short text to my father, "I'm out. The bills are yours." The response was almost immediate. My phone lit up with angry calls and rapid-fire texts. I ignored them all. By the time he showed up in person, his face was pale and his jaw locked tight. "You're serious?" he demanded. "Very," I said, crossing my arms. "You told me to pay rent or leave. I left. And I'm done paying your bills." Lisa opened her mouth as if to launch into one of her long-winded guilt trips, but no words came out. Dylan sat in the car, looking more unsettled than I'd ever seen him. That was the moment it hit me. I wasn't just holding the keys to a house. I was holding the keys to my life. That night, I started cutting every link that bound me to them. Electricity, cancelled. Water, cancelled. Internet, gone. Car insurance, severed. Each click, each phone call felt like another piece of my soul snapping back into place. Their messages kept coming, frantic now. I replied only once, "I moved out. Bills are yours now." They didn't like that answer. Days passed. The silence was almost eerie after years of constant interference and demands, but beneath it I could sense the storm brewing. It broke when Lisa showed up at my doorstep, sunglasses hiding her eyes but not her tension. "We need the car insurance back," she said sharply. "No," I said simply. "Dylan's a grown man. He can get his own policy. I'm not your crutch anymore." Her lips thinned, her eyes flashing. "You'll regret this." I closed the door before she could say more. That night, my phone buzzed again, alerts about suspicious bank activity, accounts I'd never opened, credit inquiries I'd never authorized. Suddenly it all clicked. My purse had vanished from the old house nearly a year ago, and now I knew why. I documented everything. Printed emails. Labeled statements. Built a folder I titled Boundaries. Dylan's texts turned vicious. "Think you're better than us? Watch your back." But I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the way I used to be. My emotions had cooled into something sharper, resolve. Then came Lisa's online posts. Thinly veiled accusations about ungrateful people and family betrayal. I didn't reply. Feeding their narrative would only keep me tangled in their web. A week later, Dad came alone. His voice was tight, his words clipped. "We have mortgage payments due. You have to help." I laughed, the sound short and humorless. "You dumped those responsibilities on me for years. I'm done." "This place made you," he growled. "No," I said, meeting his eyes without flinching. "This place caged me. Leaving it made me free." His jaw worked, but no words came. Finally, he muttered, "You'll come crawling back." That night, a neighbor called. They'd overheard shouting from my father's house, voices raised, blame hurled, my name mentioned like a curse. I let the information settle without reacting. That was their chaos now, not mine. The next morning, I walked into the bank and closed our last joint account. The folder in my bag felt heavier now, not just with proof, but with power. Weeks later, an email popped into my inbox. "Urgent, mortgage past due, auction scheduled." I stared at the screen, my coffee cooling beside me. This was their reality now, a house hanging on the edge of foreclosure. When they showed up at my door again, faces red and desperate, I simply held up the notice. "This," I said evenly, "is what happens when a well runs dry." They froze. And I shut the door. That night, I posted a single line, "Sometimes the hardest thing you can do is let go. But it's the only way to stand." The comments rolled in, support, encouragement, curiosity, but I never named names. This was no longer their story to twist. This was mine. And for the first time in years, I was truly free.